Hello and welcome into this week's edition of the Rookie Stripes podcast here on Racing News Now. I'm Garth, that's Tyler. How we doing now that the Daytona 500's in the books and your boy is now a Daytona 500 champion? Have you come down off of Cloud 9 yet?
Well, I mean, I guess I never really got to experience Cloud 9 since I didn't get to watch the race when it happened. But, I mean, it's a really cool win. I'm really happy for Byron. I think I should just stop picking winners for the rest of the season.
Oh, we can't do that. We just started tabulating points. We can't do that. No. No matter how bad either one of us do, we have to do that.
We'll keep doing it, but I think I might as well just forfeit now.
That's not... No. You still have to make a pick.
No, I'll still make a pick, but I'm not racing for a win here.
But what if you do win?
Then you really screwed up.
I mean, you did do better than me in one race out of 4 this weekend. And granted,
1 out of 4.
Neither one of us... Well, no, I take that back. I picked the ARCA winner. Because I did pick Gustine. But outside of that, neither one of us actually picked a winner. And really, neither one of us did that well. I mean, you got a top 10 in trucks. I got second in Xfinity. But other than that, we didn't do that well outside of my Gustine pick in ARCA.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Daytona, though, so Daytona's like throwing darts at a dartboard, is what I always like to say. You can't... If you do pick the winner, it's extremely weird. Like, let me put it this way. I think it was the first video I ever put on RNN. It was like a Daytona 500 preview for 2018. I was doing predictions, and I picked Austin Dillon to win that race.
Oh my God. You're the
Austin Dillon won that race.
You're the reason why.
That's right.
No, I mean, this is like the first year William Byron's even finished the 500 on the lead lap, and he won the race. So
yeah. You know what's funny is
kind to him.
Somebody was talking to me yesterday, and they were like, "Yeah, I saw this dude that won the 500. He wasn't really supposed to win it, though, was he? Like, what I saw was that he never had done very well in this race." And I was like, "No, he's good. He's just had really bad luck in that race."
Yeah, it's not like the Indy 500 where, the best car and driver usually wins the race. It's I don't know. You could have had Justin Haley win his second race at Daytona this year.
Yeah, exactly. And in just as bad of a car as he won in the first time.
Yeah. I mean, I hate having Daytona start the year off, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's still the Super Bowl of NASCAR, even if it's become such a crapshoot. I mean, at least this year we got somebody who's actually a consistently good car and driver combination that, I mean, if it came down to skill every single time, he'd be in contention for it every single time. So, I mean, at least it feels like a fair winner this time.
Yeah, I mean, this is a huge weekend for Byron and really for all of Hendrick Motorsports. 40 years to the day from Hendrick Motorsports' first Daytona 500. He wins it for the 9th time and ties Petty Enterprises for most all time.
Conspiracy theorists are going to say it was rigged.
Well, the finish of the race doesn't really help that.
No, especially when you think about how after Hendrick told Chastain to calm down last year, Chastain flew under the radar for a long time. So you could, if you're a conspiracy theorist, you could make the argument that Hendrick was pulling the strings there and told Chastain to do that. His arm got itchy.
So Chastain to the 48 after Bowman's gone, confirmed.
That's right. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I think Chastain will probably stay where he's at, but I guess anything's possible.
If he was given an opportunity at Hendrick, I don't think he'd pass it up.
I don't think any of us would, really.
Fair enough. Hendrick is one of those teams that practically every team has its ebbs and flows, but it seems like Hendrick is always on a high. They really never have a low year.
Even their low years are still, like, they get a couple wins.
Right. Like, even those couple of years after Gordon retired, and it was literally Jimmy in his worst years, and then 3 really young guys of Elliott, Bowman, and Byron. It was still... They were still doing fairly well. Like, it's not like what a low year would be for most teams.
Or even like when they still had Casey Kane, you had Jimmy Johnson and Casey Kane battling it out for the Brickyard 400 in a year that they had no business competing for a win.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, that's one of those teams that no matter how bad they get, they've always been one of the elite teams. I mean, and you can't say that about any other elite team. Stuart Haas has had some very low years recently. Roush had some very low years. Childress is more low years than it is good years. It just depends who's in the car.
That one's self-inflicted, though.
It is very self-inflicted. I mean, outside of Earnhardt and Harvick, that team has never been that great.
No. Don't worry, Austin Dillon is the leader of the
Cup team.
Austin Dillon is the leader of that team. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
That's right, which is very strange when you've got a Hall of Fame level talent in the other car.
What do you mean? You got a Hall of Fame level talent in the 3 right now.
Oh, yeah.
Watch, he Hall of Fame talent of holding spoons. Well, he won the Daytona 500 by trying to kill Eric Almirola. So.
Fair enough, yeah. Can you imagine if Eric Almirola had actually won that race?
Yeah.
I wonder
almost
how
did.
Well, yeah. Can you imagine how things would have been different, though? Like if Eric Almirola was a Daytona 500 champion.
And not Austin Dillon.
Yeah. And that was...
I don't know.
I think that was Almirola's first race in the 10 car, too.
Was it?
I think it was.
Huh. Yeah, it might have been.
Pretty sure it was, yeah.
Because, he was in the 43 and 17, and then 18 went to the 10? Huh.
Yeah, that would have been quite the way to start off a relationship with Stuart Haas.
Yeah, and maybe not led Haas to the position it's in right now.
Right.
Although I was fairly impressed with Chase Briscoe some of the race. But
I feel like that's
Josh
how I am
Berry
with Chase
got spun
Briscoe
out.
every race.
Chase Briscoe is a really good driver. It's just they got a really shitty car right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Stuart Haas has got to do something about their equipment.
Josh Berry getting spun out on a green flag pit stop didn't really help.
No, that didn't help. Noah Gragson just being there didn't help.
Yeah, Noah Gragson existing doesn't help that team.
Yeah, and then Priest got taken out so early he didn't even have a chance to be competitive. He seemed like he was fast even with the damage because he was pushing guys around in the front, but
yeah,
never really got a chance to compete.
Still lapped down most of the time.
Yeah.
And then after Harrison Burton got deleted on like lap 5.
Yeah, right.
Who'd he hit? Eric Jones or something? No, it wasn't.
I don't remember how that wreck went.
I don't know. It was like lap 5 and somebody got shoved out of the pack and came straight back up through the tri-oval. And
it might have been Eric Jones. I don't remember. Overall, though, outside of like stupid wrecks on lap 5, it seemed like every race had a stupid wreck on lap 5 this weekend.
Yeah.
Lap 5, lap 7, lap 4, something like that. Outside of that, and outside of how dumb the finish was, I really didn't think this was a bad 500. Like, honestly, I think this is one of the best 500s we've had in a long time, racing-wise, throughout the entire race.
Don't worry, NASCAR disagrees with you.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
No, they're already investigating the fuel-saving tactics for the race.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
I guess something about it's not in the spirit of the race. They want the drivers to go flat out to the finish every race. I'm like, dude, we had the best racing in the 500 that we've had in the past 10, 15 years, maybe.
Just because they were going 2 seconds slower than they normally would have been to save fuel, and the whole pack agreed to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, so they spent all this time trying to get pack racing and all the big wrecks together, and then they have pack racing and don't wreck, and then they're like, oh, we can't have this. We got to go back to single file line around the top of the track for 100 laps.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say. Like, NASCAR, it's good like NASCAR.
The Daytona 500 was surprisingly the one thing that's not broken this year, and now we got to fix that too.
Right? Like, the Xfinity race was not that exciting to watch. The truck race had its moments, but I mean, it was the truck series, so it was just a wreck fest. And ARCA really wasn't that bad, other than Jake Finch dominating the whole thing until the last restart. But
I called that one early, by the way.
did you?
Yeah, we were getting ready to restart for overtime. It was like, yeah, the guys that have been leading the whole race are not going to make it.
Well, oh, that's right. You did say, well, you
Gustine
also
made
said,
it, but Jake
yeah,
Finch didn't.
you said Gus Dean was going to be involved in that too, and he probably would have been if he let Jake Finch down in line like they told him to.
I was half right. That was better than any of the other 4 picks I made this weekend.
You also made that in the moment and not 3 days before.
Yeah. I just think it's interesting how much 3 wide action we had in the 500 this year. I don't think I've seen them 3 wide that much in quite a while, if ever.
No, they were really getting after it this year, which I was surprised by because, like you said, most of the time in these super speedway races anymore, they just end up in a single file line around the top for most of the race, and that's all that happens outside of stage finishes.
Yeah, I would say, like, regardless of what NASCAR says about the fuel saving stuff, the fact that it wasn't a single file train around the top of the track for 60% of the race makes this an automatic win for me.
But the thing is, if they do come down with some ruling about the fuel savings, then we're going to go back to that.
Yeah, which I hated that, and I feel like everybody else did too. I mean, it was completely unwatchable for 3/4 of the race. At least now things are happening. We're just going 5 mile an hour slower.
See, and the weirdest thing is NASCAR has done all these things in recent years to limit the horsepower and make the cars slower. But when the competitors make the cars slower willingly, oh no, that's not okay.
Yeah, it's our rules. You can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
I know Denny Hamlin said something about it in his podcast. I haven't watched it yet, but I'm interested to see what the drivers are saying about this because everybody collectively agreed, let's just save fuel and run like this. And I don't know. Just the single file around the top just made me angry with all the super speedway races recently.
Things like this from NASCAR make me think that we're not far from a kart IRL type split.
Oh yeah, that and the teams hiring the private lawyers and investigators against the series. I'm fully expecting some of the top teams to go make their own series and NASCAR be left with like ARCA.
Yeah, basically. It wouldn't surprise me a bit. It really wouldn't. Because I think we're heading in that direction. There's been a lot of universally agreed stupid decisions that NASCAR has made in recent years. You can tell the teams don't like it. You can tell the drivers don't like it. Eventually, there's going to be a straw that breaks the camel's back. And
Yeah,
I think
NASCAR
we're getting
keeps
very
going.
close to that.
NASCAR keeps going after all the TV money and not listening to the teams at all. And yeah, kart, IRL, NASCAR, and everybody else. I don't know.
Well, supposedly the teams are going to be getting more money next year with this new TV contract. I don't know how much more money. I just saw that they would be getting more.
I caught you $1.
Yeah. Oh, you got to be quicker than that.
Yeah.
You can't be saving fuel. You got to be quicker than that.
What's next? They're gonna put in like a super speedway rule where you get like X amount more money if you have a certain number of laps at a certain speed or some bullshit.
That wouldn't surprise me. I mean, they've done things like that in the past. They've incentivized leading at a certain lap or leading a certain amount of laps. I know as I've gone back through some of these NASCAR Classics races, there's been certain races where if you're the halfway leader, you'll get a bonus. Or like in the Clash, they had it where like the Clash was only like 20 laps back then, like in the early days in the 80s. But they would have bonuses if you were leading on lap 5, lap 10, lap 15.
Yeah, the stage points weren't enough, I guess.
They didn't have stage points in the 80s.
Well, back then, but now, I mean, we've got the stages and everything else, and oh no, they were saving fuel trying to strategize and make it to the race in an efficient manner. Ugh. Can't have that.
No.
I don't know. It just bugs me.
It does make me wonder, though, if they had gone flat out the whole race, where would we have been on fuel at the end? Would it have become a fuel mileage race at the end? Maybe that's what NASCAR wants. Maybe they're, and I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here. Maybe they're thinking that by the teams doing this in the middle of the race, they're manipulating the end of the race and taking away something that could have been more exciting at the end of the race.
It's not going to matter anyway because somebody's going to wreck with under 10 to go, and then we're going to have a whole bunch of overtime finishes where inevitably somebody has to pit, and everybody's pissed off that they didn't get to finish the race under green anyway.
The argument to that would be you don't know that there's going to be somebody wreck with 10 to go.
Well, the teams don't know that it's going to turn into a fuel mileage finish at the beginning of the race, so what does it matter?
Yeah. Well, the teams don't want it to turn into a fuel mileage race. That's what they're trying to keep from.
My favorite thing about it was that everybody collectively decided, let's just do this and not have to worry about it at the end of the race.
I know,
like,
right?
Okay.
Like, in NASCAR history has every team in the middle of a race decided that this is what we're going to do collectively, and nobody went against it.
Yeah, I mean, like, the manufacturers still tried to pit on different laps, and honestly, the green flag pit strategy that they had, where guys trying to get to the bottom to pit, and then other guys going around them, staying out for a couple laps, keeping the draft together. I really like that. I can't remember too many times where we've had like big green flag pit cycles at Daytona, because usually the first group that pits, somebody wrecks, and then everybody else comes down under yellow. And I don't know. I liked having multiple green flag pit stops in this race.
Yeah, no, it was nice. It added a little bit of extra strategy that we don't usually get in these races anymore. Because like you said, a lot of times, if we do get to the point where there's green flag stops, inevitably somebody will wreck coming onto pit road because they didn't woe it down enough. And then everybody else just ends up pitting under caution, and that's the end of it.
Yeah, I don't know. I really like this Daytona 500 once I actually got to watch it. This is probably the best super speedway race that I've watched in 5 or 10 years.
No, I agree. At least 5 or 10 years. I'm trying to think. I think the last Daytona 500 that was this exciting was probably, was it 2017, the year that Kurt Busch won, when it came down to a fuel mileage race at the end?
I think so.
Yeah, I think that's right. That's the last one I can remember being like anywhere close to this exciting.
Yeah, and that wasn't even the entire race. Like, just this whole race was decent.
Yeah.
Yeah, we only had a couple big crashes. It took until the very end of the race for the entire field to wreck.
Yeah, it really pissed me off, me personally, that this race happened on Monday, because I literally took the entire weekend off for nothing but Daytona. And then Saturday and Sunday ran into Monday, which was my one day at work at the day job before I had Tuesday and Wednesday off for my weekend.
Oh yeah, I lucked into a 3-day weekend and could have watched every series Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Cup and Xfinity race Monday. I'm like, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny how that ends up working out that way. I burned, what, four vacation days when I really only needed to burn 2 or 1 even.
Wow.
Yeah.
Such
well, and I mean, originally the plan was I was going to go to Daytona anyway, and that got shot whenever I got so rudely rejected for my credentials. But that's another story.
Well, now you've said that you enjoyed them saving fuel and having green flag pit stops and not wrecking, so you're never going to get your credentials ever again. You can kiss those goodbye.
Oh yeah, I'm
never going to get credentials. I'm not even going to be able to get a garage pass now. I said I enjoyed fuel saving and strategy.
Yep, you're on the block list from NASCAR now.
Domestic
they see Tyler
terrorism.
Guthrie come up on a credential request, they're like, nope.
Domestic terrorism.
That's right.
You
learn from the best.
I guess Cindric is blaming Corey LaJoie for the wreck at the end of the race. What's that all about?
I'm not really sure, to be honest. He's claiming that LaJoie peeking down underneath him going into the tri-oval was what caused that wreck, and that he got into him and he was off center. And that's why the wreck happened, which
So
Every angle I've
Ross,
looked at, huh?
so Ross Chastain driving into the side of Cindric was not the cause of the wreck.
Right. Every angle I've looked at, one, yes, LaJoy did hit him at kind of an angle when Cindric came down and blocked him, but then he hit him again square in the back bumper. And then 2 seconds later, Chastain comes down and turns himself off of Cindric's nose, just completely hangs a left, no regard for Cindric being there at all. And I don't see how in any realm of possibility that could have been Corey LaJoy's fault.
I guess like maybe Cindric is thinking that LaJoy hitting him in the back moved him up the track into Chastain, and that's why they wrecked. But
It didn't though, because if
you can clearly see Chastain hang a left and try to go underneath Byron right into the side of Cindric.
Right, and not only can you see Chastain hang a left, but if you watch the two car doesn't move. He is in the exact same lane the whole time. So
Yeah.
Chastain is the one that does all the movement. And I think Chastain made a bigger move than what he meant to do because he starts left, and as he starts left, Byron starts left to block him. There was a hole there that he could have gotten into. Byron covered that hole just enough to where there wasn't a hole there anymore. So Chastain reacts in the moment and just keeps yanking it to the left and drives into Cindric.
I think really regardless of Cindric being there or not, I think either Chastain or Byron was gonna wreck there.
Oh, absolutely. And
either Chastain was going to go underneath Byron and turn him, or he was going to hit Cindric.
I think if that hadn't happened, and they had somehow all gotten through that, 99% chance Byron does not win that race.
Oh, yeah, Chastain definitely would have won that.
I don't know about that. I don't know if it would have been Chastain, but somebody other than Byron would have won it. Chastain, if he had somehow found his way into that hole, would have gotten the lead in that moment, but that doesn't mean he holds it for the entire lap.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Byron at that point, if Chastain gets underneath you, there's so much of a gap to the next car behind Chastain that they're just going to go right around you on the top.
Oh, yeah. Byron was done for if Chastain doesn't pull a Chastain in that moment.
Chastain got a Chastain, dude.
That's right. He Chastained himself.
We can't have a NASCAR race without a controversial Chastain moment.
That's right. So before we move on to the rest of the weekend, let's quickly recap where we're at in our, I guess we'll call it our fantasy points.
Sure.
For after week one. To remind everyone, I picked Denny Hamlin for this race. You picked Brad Keselowski. Neither one of us did well, but I did better than you did.
That's not very difficult.
No. I come out of this race with 22 points from Denny Hamlin, and you leave with 4 points from Brad Keselowski.
I thought I was on a roll there towards the end of the race until Bowman did a Bowman.
Yes, he did.
Keselowski was going to the front until Bowman had something to say about it.
Yeah. We got Chastaining himself, and then Bowman's the rest of the field.
Something interesting I caught at Bowman's post-race interview. He finished second in the Daytona 500, which is like the biggest thing in NASCAR, and didn't really seem that bummed about it, which kind of surprised me. I guess as an IndyCar fan, I'd see the interviews from the guys that finished second in Indy 500 the past couple of years, and like Ericsson's calling out the series. This is bullshit. That's terrible. Why would you do that? And then like Carlos Munoz a couple of years basically crying on pit lane because he didn't win. And you got Bowman like, yeah, I mean, we finished second. It was a good team win. Good job. We'll come back next year. I don't know if that's like a level of importance difference between Indy and Daytona, because I don't know. It just felt weird to me.
Well, and on top of that, if you watch Byron's post-race interview, Byron didn't seem as excited as you would think he would be at winning in the biggest race in the sport. Like, he didn't seem to have the excitement that to your point, the guys in the Indy 500 seem to have when they win. And I think this goes back to what we were talking about one of the previous episodes from this season. It was either last week or the week before after the Clash. How I think it's just a difference in the the two sports at this point. Like with IndyCar, the 500 is it. The 500 means more to win that than it does to win the championship. Whereas in NASCAR, the Daytona 500 is big, but at this point, it's almost just another race because the championship is the big prize at this point. Even though a lot of these guys are now saying the championships are so different now that they don't really care if they win a championship at this point or not. I've heard multiple drivers say that recently, that they're not really concerned if they win a championship or not. It's about racking up the wins now.
Yeah, I know Denny's been one of the big guys to say that, but I guess when you choke in a championship race every year, you get a little bit of a different perspective.
I mean, Harvick said that in 2020 when he got eliminated at Martinsville, the year that he, as far as I'm concerned, won the championship.
Yeah, I mean,
I will die on that hill. Harvick is the 2020 champion.
you can have that hill because I agree with you. I don't like this format at all, but yeah, it was just a weird thing for me just because, I mean, I've been watching so many Indy 500s recently that you get to the end of the race, you've got, after Elio won his fourth, he ran the entire front straightaway, climbing up the fence, crying and everything.
Yeah.
And like you get Tony Kanaan when he finally won it and different things like that. And then Byron's like, you can tell he's happy. And I don't, maybe part of it was just not really understanding, like, yeah, I actually did win the Daytona 500. Like,
yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
I don't know.
it didn't seem like he was any more excited to win that than he would be this week at Atlanta, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just a testament to how NASCAR has made their series now. Because, I mean, you win Daytona and cool, now you don't have to do anything until the playoffs now.
Yeah, well, and that's one thing when we get to the Nick Sanchez interview later. That was another thing where I was kind of surprised that he didn't seem as excited about a Daytona win either, because the first thing I ask him is, how's it feel to be a Daytona winner? And he's just like, well, yeah, it's great. I mean, he's like, the bigger thing is I don't have to worry about wins at this point now. I'm in the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah. I just, the whole format makes the entire first probably half of the season just a moot point.
Mm-hmm. It does. It absolutely does. And I mean, honestly, the entire first 85% of the season is really a moot point. If you run well enough that you can get into the playoffs, you don't need a win 99% of years. What year was it that we had 16 winners? Or maybe it was 15 winners. Was that last year or the year before?
Yeah, one of the two.
It was 2022. It was the first year of the next gen. That's right. We had so many different winners that year. It was 15 or 16. I don't remember how many winners we ended up with that year, but it was getting to the point where you were going to have to win if you were going to make the playoffs. But most of the time, if you have a consistent enough season, you don't need to win to make the playoffs. And in fact, you really don't need to win. If you're running consistent enough that you made the playoffs without a win, you can continue running that consistently until like the round of 8. And you don't need to win until that point. Ryan Blaney showed that last year. Like, yeah, he won a couple of races before the playoffs, but he really wasn't much of a factor all season. And then all of a sudden, he did exactly what you need to do with this format. He won a race in the round of 8, and he won Phoenix. That's all you've got to do. Literally all you have to do.
Just got to have a good car for Phoenix and one of the final 4 or one of the races in the round of 8.
Absolutely. That's literally all you've got to do. And that's why I feel like this format almost never crowns a deserving champion. 2021, absolutely, Kyle Larson should have won that championship. That I will not deny at all. But more often than not, it's not the driver that should have won the championship that had the best season. And that's just kind of what we're stuck with at this point. Is Ryan Blaney the 2023 champion? Yes. Under the format given, yes, he is the champion. Did he have a championship-worthy season? No. But it is what it is. It's what we're stuck with at this point until NASCAR finally opens their eyes and realizes we got to do something better than this.
I think the teams are going to split off before that happens.
They probably will. I mean, and that may be one of the sticking points that they split off because of. It very well could be. So, I don't know. We'll see what happens. As for the rest of the weekend, Xfinity, honestly, I thought might have been the worst race of the weekend entertainment-wise. There really wasn't a lot going on in that race. Had an interesting fuel mileage situation going on late in the race where you had, who was it, Natalie Decker, Ryan Ellis, and I think it was Garrett Smithley was the other one that had stayed out for a long period of time and were leading the race with a couple other lap cars in a draft with them after everybody else had pitted, trying for some sort of a caution fuel mileage strategy, which they got, and then the strategy didn't play out because nobody else pitted with them under caution. But Natalie Decker led some laps in this race. I don't think she's led laps in an Xfinity race before, so I think that's a first. And ended up top 20, which in the car she was in, I don't know is that bad, to be honest. So I guess kudos to Natalie Decker. Jesse Love was very fast as well. Started on the pole, had a fast car, then got caught up in a wreck. So unfortunately didn't get to finish it off and show what he could do late in the race. But I think he showed he's going to be a contender this year at RCR. I'm still just worried he's going to get the Creed treatment. What kind of pissed me off is they had Andy Petrie in the booth for this race. And at one point they were talking about Austin Hill, and Andy Petrie's just like, oh yeah, he's such a nice guy. He's great with all of his teammates. He mentors them and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like,
mentored Creed right into the wall last year.
You all proved that wrong at Martinsville.
He mentored Creed right into the wall.
Right. Don't be gaslighting me like that, because I know that's not true.
Yeah,
I know that's not true.
I don't believe a word that comes out of anybody from RCR.
Not at this point, except for Jesse Love. I would believe anything Jesse Love said at this point. And I would have believed anything Sheldon Creed said last year. But Austin Hill, Andy Petrie, Richard Childress, nope, don't believe it.
No, it's a rotten organization from the top down. Surprisingly, one of the few good people in that organization is Kyle Busch, and I never thought I'd say that. So
I think we had this conversation last year. Can you believe Kyle Busch is like the best thing about RCR at this point? I'd almost call Jesse Love the best thing at RCR at this point, but he's right up there with Kyle. We've at least got two decent things that aren't bad at RCR right now.
Teenage me never would have believed that I would say something good about Kyle Busch.
Right? Austin Hill wins again, though. Third straight year he's won this race. Sheldon Creed was right there, though. Sheldon Creed was making moves the last couple laps, had gotten to Austin Hill's bumper, and I think had everybody not deleted themselves down the backstretch, Sheldon Creed was going to make a play for that win and was probably going to beat Austin. Unfortunately, some very weird circumstances. I think NASCAR was just ready to be done and out of there. So when everybody wrecked on the backstretch, they didn't throw a caution. So literally, it's just Austin Hill and Sheldon Creed at this point. There's nobody behind them for drafting help at all. And I think Creed assumed the caution had come out. So he lets off of it. Hill stays in the gas. By the time Creed realizes the caution's not out, he's already like 10 car lengths behind Austin Hill and can't do anything with him all the way to the line. So very weird circumstance. Unfortunately, Sheldon Creed didn't get a shot at it. I think he was going to win that race, though, if the entire pack didn't wreck down the backstretch, though.
Yeah, that would have been something for Creed to jump teams and then beat the guy that, took him into the wall at Martinsville.
And I still think he can do it this week at Atlanta. I think Atlanta would be just as funny if he did it, since Austin Hill won this exact race at Atlanta last year. It was just a couple weeks later, but it wasn't the second race of the season, but won the same race. So I think it would still be just as cool if Creed does it this week. So before we move on to trucks, let's look at our Xfinity picks for last week. I picked Sheldon Creed, so I was very close to a win. Got second, 48 points there. You had Jesse Love, so you come away with 27 points. So you got a little bit of hole to dig out of in both series, but it's not terrible.
Yeah, we'll dig the hole a little deeper this week.
Though I'm sure I'll pick some bad picks coming up here. It'll happen. On to trucks. Big win for Nick Sanchez. Got wrecked early in the wreck on lap 7 or whatever it was, but didn't really get any damage. He got turned, so he got a little bit of damage on the left rear, but otherwise just slid it down through the grass. Didn't tear up the splitter, surprisingly. They came down, they fixed that left rear damage, and he was right back in it for most of the race. Otherwise, though, I don't know. There's much to talk about from the truck race. So before we go into hearing Nick Sanchez's thoughts from that race, do want to give some shout outs for finishes in that race. Spencer Boyd in his new Merca team. Merca. Top 5. So good run for Spencer Boyd. Brett Holmes in 4th. Good run for him as well. Stephen Parsons in the ballpark Wienermobile comes home in 6th. Timmy Hill, Brian Doza, 8th and 9th. The top 10s for them. Good runs for them as well. I will say, this is why I hate stage points. Tyler Ankrum finished 11th in this race, but he leaves this race as the points leader. He got one more point than Nick Sanchez in this race. How? What? If you didn't need any other reason to know that stage points are stupid, the guy that finished 11th in race 1 leaves with the points lead. I can't fathom the level of stupidity here.
It's okay. Nick Sanchez won the race and now doesn't have to worry about stage points the rest of the year.
Well, that's true. That is very true. We'll look at our truck picks real quick from last week, and then we'll head into that interview. This is the one race you did better than me, because I picked Corey LaJoy, and he got caught up in that last lap wreck and ended up in 20th. You had Christian Eckes. He was in an early wreck, but came back for a top 10 in 10th. So you got 39 points. I got 21. So Tyler does lead now in the truck picks. And also, if you made picks last week, see where you are in relevance to us. Are you beating us? Are you not beating us? Let us know in the chat or the comments, depending on if you're watching the premiere or not. But with that, let's slide over and see what Nick Sanchez had to say after this race, and then we'll be back to talk about ARCA. And we're now joined by Nick Sanchez, winner of Friday's Craftsman Truck Race from Daytona. How's it feel, man, to be a Daytona winner?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it feels good, right? I mean, the biggest thing, I don't have to worry really about points anymore in the truck series. So yeah, it's cool to get the first win out of the way. I've been looking for it for a while. So yeah, better late than never.
Well, let's expand on that a little. You ran so well last season, came right out of the gate, had so many close calls, almost won. I mean, if circumstances had changed, you might be a 5-6-time race winner already at this point after last season. And just circumstances kept you as the bridesmaid, or you'd get into accidents or whatever the case may have been last year. So how does it feel to finally get that monkey off your back and to be able to have that first win now?
Yeah, it feels good, right? And like you touched on, I mean, you know, I could tally up 12 or 13 races where we had winning speed last year, and it just didn't happen. A lot of it was probably my fault, just not executing races the way they needed to be executed. So I knew coming into this year really wouldn't have a rookie excuse, right? You know, I got to go get the job done and do it. Got everything else. So yeah, Daytona, first one out, we did it. And yeah, I mean, my goal this year is right to make up for all those races I missed last year. So I've got a ways to go.
Well, let's talk about the race itself there. You kind of lucked out early on. You got involved in that, what was it, lap 7 wreck on the backstretch, but
yeah,
it seemed like you got out of that pretty well unscathed. You got spun down into the infield, but didn't really hit anything after that point. Did you think your night was over already at that point when that happened?
I mean, in the moment where I got clipped and I was looking at the inside wall, yeah, I did. And obviously, when it was all said and done, I don't know how I just ended up with some left rear damage, but my team fixed that pretty well. And yeah, I mean, the biggest part of the truck obviously is like the front splitter and the downforce that makes, etc. And you know, we didn't really get any splitter damage from the grass, which I was really surprised about. So yeah, I guess I used up all my luck on lap 6. And yeah, it was kind of definitely a weird wreck, right? Because it started like 2 rows behind me and it made its way up to me, kind of like a domino effect. So yeah, it was definitely an interesting run of events for sure.
Definitely. So as you got further into the race, tell us about the mid portion of your race, because I don't feel like I really noticed you at all during the mid portion of the race after that. You just kind of came out of nowhere there at the end. What was the mid portion of the race like for you? We're just kind of biding your time.
No, I mean I was going right, but I think stage 2 I got 2 stage points, so I think I made my way up back to 5th or 6th by stage 2, and then I got shuffled back. But all those cautions, right? I took the opportunity to just top off on fuel. Like I was pretty close on fuel at the end. So I know a couple of the guys really didn't make it, so we just wanted to be in position for the last couple cautions at the end, right? So we didn't have to come top off then. And yeah, I mean, the one thing we did not ride all race, even after that wreck, we fixed our damage and we went racing, and it was just about right getting the right run and right momentum to get up there because there was a lot of people that were kind of plugging up the lanes that I wanted to be in, and I believe I made my way up there. Um, I think on a 3 wide move with a couple other trucks. So after that, I was kind of able to get control of the race and kind of do what I want at the end.
So what does this win do for your confidence this season? Like we talked about, you finally shook that monkey off your back and got that first win. They always say the first win's the hardest. And once you get that out of the way, they come easier after that point. So the speed you had last season and that you clearly had at Daytona, what does that do for your confidence this season? Does that make you a championship threat in your eyes?
Um, I feel like it's not really my confidence as a driver because I feel like that hasn't changed. I do feel pretty confident in my abilities, but I think just knowing how to win is the biggest thing. The how to, right? When you have all the pieces and you don't know how to put it together, it's kind of a question mark. So, the how to is the biggest thing I got from it, right? And like I've been telling everyone, stage 3 is what I'm focused on this year, right? Stage 1 and 2 is kind of neither here or there, and it works out perfect because we don't have to points race now. And yeah, I mean, I hope now I'm kind of taken as a championship threat. I definitely feel that way. We almost made it there last year, and I don't want to say I didn't deserve it last year, right? But I didn't win a race, so it was kind of like, yeah, I want to go to the championship for, yeah, I want to compete for a championship, but I don't I don't want to win the championship without a win. I'll take it, but like I want to win races, right? First and foremost. So this year I accomplished that right off the bat, and now honestly, uh, I'm focused on Phoenix, focused on the championship, but I want to win every race in between now and then.
Absolutely. So to end off here, let's talk about the overall big picture for you and how much it means for you to have the support you do from a team like Rev Racing. After you won the 2022 championship, there was a lot of questions about where would Nick Sanchez be in 23 and what was the next step for you. And Rev had so much confidence in you that they started a truck team that they didn't have before that just for you, and they've stuck with you for that. Like, what does that mean to have a team behind you that believes in you that much that they'll start a team at the next level for you?
Yeah, obviously it means a lot, right? Max Eagle's been there from the beginning with me with Rev Racing, and he's always wanted to expand into the national series, and that was right around the time we started getting pretty good Chevrolet support for Rev and the ARCA series, and that kind of expanded to the truck series. So it's pretty cool to obviously be the first one to drive for Rev in the national series. And yeah, it was definitely an interesting time because there was a lot going on, and a lot of the deal was not even really us, right? It was Kyle going to RCR and KBM going to Chevrolet, and obviously now that you look back at that and you kind of forget it even happened.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there was a lot of dominoes that had to fall into place. Obviously, Gamebridge was a big part of it. Um, big reason it even happened, Chevrolet. So yeah, it was an exciting time, and glad it all worked out the way it did.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's all I got for you today, Nick. So thanks for joining us today. As always, it has been a pleasure. Congratulations again on the big win at Daytona. I'm sure that won't be the last this season. And good luck the rest of the season.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, so that's what Nick Sanchez had to say after winning not only his first career race, but the first race of this season at Daytona, his first win at Daytona. I think period, because I don't think he won at Daytona and ARCA. So cool to see him finally pick up that first truck win and lock himself into the playoffs, because as he said, that seems to be the more important takeaway here. So Tyler, do you have any thoughts on that before we move into ARCA?
No, I'm just kind of surprised that the Cup race was the best race of the season, or not the season, but the weekend.
Yeah, I am too. Because I think it was either last week or the week before that I had said something about. I think it was last week, because I was talking about how Daytona should be a national holiday, and I said even if the race sucks because the Super Speedway package is terrible, it should still be a holiday. And the race didn't suck. So I don't know if we've got a better Super Speedway package this year or if it was just a fluke, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it very much.
It's because they had strategy during a race.
That's true, which apparently NASCAR doesn't like.
No, we can't have that.
Yeah. But let's move on to ARCA now. Big win for Gustine, third career ARCA win for him, the first at Daytona, his first since being with Venturini Motorsports on a part-time basis. Good to see him win that race. I was really hoping, I'm sure the team is not happy about it, but they asked both crew chiefs, both his crew chief and Jake Finch's crew chief on the last caution, if they were going to do a teammate restart and if he was going to let Jake down in front of him and let them settle it amongst themselves. Both crew chiefs said that was the plan. Gus didn't do that, which I am so happy he didn't do that, because that would essentially have given the win to Jake Finch. He'd have never gotten enough momentum up in one lap to where he'd have gotten back around Jake for the win. So I'm glad he went for it. He was like, no, this is Daytona. I'm not just going to let him have this win. I know what's going to happen if I let him down in front of me on this restart. If he wants it, he can earn it. And I like that.
That made the end of that race 10 times more entertaining than it would have been otherwise.
Absolutely. Because that's the thing. Like, I've complained about these one-lap restarts in the past in ARCA, which they limit it to one attempt at Daytona and Talladega also, so that they don't just keep wrecking the entire field. So you knew this was it. It was one lap, but there was not going to be another restart. And I've complained about that in the past, and I think most of the issue with that has been we've gotten teammate restarts from Venturini. They let whoever's in the outside lane down onto the inside, and nobody can do anything with them. And it's just those two single file all the way to the line, and that's the finish to every single Daytona and Talladega race recently, unless there's no Venturini cars in the front. And when you have a one-lap restart where they don't do that, that's when it can actually be decent. They're not up to speed yet, but they can still race.
Yeah, or like have a 2-lap restart or something like that, like they do in Cup with the overtime. But, I mean, Jake Finch is going to win other races this year.
Mm-hmm.
Gustine, part-time schedule, this is probably the best chance he had to win a race. I'm glad he went for it. And regardless of what repercussions the team gives him, he won the race. Fair and square. I mean, I don't like that they said, oh, yeah, we'll do the team restart, and then didn't, because that looks kind of shitty. But I'm glad they didn't do it, because that would have been a really boring end of the race.
Well, the thing is, I think the team wanted to do the restart, and then Gus said, or Gus may have even told them on the radio he was going to do it, and then just said screw it on the restart and went for it. Because that's what they wanted. They wanted that Venturini 1-2 safe finish is what the team wanted, which I don't blame them for wanting that, but that kind of kills the finish for the fans.
Yeah, I mean, I get the point, but as a fan, I never want to see that.
No, absolutely not. And we've had it way too many times in these races. A couple years ago, I think it was 2022. It was, or maybe it was 21. It was the year that Drew Dollar was full-time in the 15.
Ooh, Drew Dollar.
Yeah. That's a name I don't want to remember. He and Corey Heim were starting on the front row. Heim had dominated the race. Drew had damage, though, and was not going to be competitive for the win, but was restarting second. So he knew he wasn't going to win if he tried. So he literally did the teammate restart and let Corey down and basically was the blocker for Corey and let Corey win that race. Venturini teammate restarts are not new, but they are not fun from a viewer, fan, anybody perspective. They're only fun from a Venturini perspective.
Looking like Ferrari in the mid 2000s.
Right? The other thing that happened in this race, we had some more drama within the Venturini camp that also involved Gustine, but really shouldn't have involved Gustine. The early on, lap 4 had a wreck going into turn 1. I don't remember who it was. Somebody got into the back of Gustine and got him sideways, which turned him left into his teammate Tony Breidinger, which shut off a major wreck into turn 1. Gus obviously kept going, didn't have issues. Tony did not, as did most of the other cars in the race. 3 of the 5 Venturini cars were in that wreck. Tony, Amber Balkin, and Chris Wright were all in that wreck. They talked to Tony after she came out of the care center after that, and she held nothing back in saying that it was Gus's fault, and she couldn't believe he made that kind of a stupid move. It's lap 4. This is why he's not in he wasn't in a truck earlier today, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, have you not seen a replay? That was not Gus's fault in the slightest. He wasn't intentionally moving to the left. Somebody got into the back of him with a bad push, and he was trying to gather the car up. But then apparently...
These super speedway tracks, all that matters, it's not your talent as a driver, it's whoever's behind you.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then it got deeper than that, because then she goes on to MRN on the radio and starts calling him all these names and all these slurs and blah, blah, blah. And it got even worse. Like, she was holding even less back on the radio. And she was calling him some things, we'll put it this way, that at least one driver, I think more than one driver, have gotten sensitivity training for in the past. So that'll be interesting to see if she does get that from this, because if we're being fair and someone else in the past has, she should too, especially when she's just throwing all this stuff out and hasn't even seen a replay, being completely uneducated about what happened, just assuming that he drove down across her nose and pulled a Chastain when he didn't.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen people get sensitivity training for even less than this, I think. So, I think Kyle Busch did this a couple years ago.
It was Kyle Busch, that's right, yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see how much pull being a spokesperson at Toyota now has for her, but, I mean, fair is fair. She should get it. But, yeah, I don't understand the hate for Gustine on that one. I don't think he did anything wrong. It's just, all you got to do is get a push in the wrong place from somebody, and there goes the field, which is why I hate Daytona and Talladega now.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And I hope someone has talked to her. I just looked before we started here, and I didn't see where she had made any sort of public apology for this. So apparently she still thinks she was in the right. And I'm hoping, although I'm not confident, that someone has gone to her and said, hey, you need to calm down. You weren't right here, and you're just going out here slandering your teammate when you didn't even have all the facts and you weren't right.
Yeah, I'd maybe get it if it was not a teammate and somebody that she'd had issues with before, but it's Gustine, a teammate on a part-time schedule. Maybe just don't.
Right. Like, it's not a good look. And I get it if, like, Gus really did pull a Chastain and just drive down into her. I would get being upset, but
Yeah, but then all you say in your interview is it's disappointing that we got taken out by somebody. We'll go get him next week. You don't do all this other stuff.
Yeah, she's got to learn, even in a situation like this, even if she was right, she's got to have more tact than that. Because it's not a good look. Even if she is right, it's not a good look for her to be going on and on about Gus, teammate or not. You got to take the high road. You've got to be more professional, and that's just not what she did. It's not even close to what she did.
There's a lot more to being a race car driver than just driving the car, and it's disappointing how many really big talents we've seen come and go just because they don't understand that.
Right. Now, granted, I want to see drivers with personality. I don't want to see everybody be robots like the Hendrick drivers, but
there's a difference between personality and being stupid, though.
Right. And that's what this comes down to. Like, I'm all for her showing personality and being who she is, but you cross a line whenever you start slandering your teammate for something he wasn't the cause of and that he didn't do.
Yeah, I mean, if Kyle Busch wasn't the ridiculously awesome driver he was in the late 2000s, early 2010s, he would have gotten kicked out of the sport so fast for some of the things he said and did.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's probably the only reason he's still around is because he's as good as he is.
Yeah, and some people just don't have the driving to back that up.
Nope. She hasn't up to this point. Now, granted, I'll give her credit. She was better last year than she has been in the past, but it still
being
wasn't
better than your
results to
previous
back up
years.
talking like that.
Yeah, backing or being better in your previous years doesn't really get you very far when NASCAR says to go to sensitivity training. But I was better than I did last year.
Yeah. All right. So our ARCA picks for last week. I obviously come out with the win here because I picked Gustine. So I leave with 47 points. Tyler did not do so hot picking Shane Van Gisbergen, SVG. Or
I did better than I thought I was going to.
Sorry, as Mikey called him in the Xfinity race, Shane Van Gisbergen.
Hey, I'll take the 15 points. That is a lot better than I thought I was going to get Friday.
Yeah, that's true. So that's where we stand in our ARCA picks right now, leaving Daytona. Before we get to this week's Atlanta picks, Tyler, I believe you have some IndyCar and F1 stuff to talk about.
Yeah, today was the first day of F1 preseason testing. We're recording this on Wednesday, so I guess it'd be yesterday by the time this comes out. Everybody's shocked to learn that Max Verstappen was fastest, but I don't know. F1 preseason testing is just kind of dumb anyway, because you never know which teams are actually trying to do fast laps or not, and you don't learn anything until probably Q3 of the first race of the season. So take it with a grain of salt. A lot of drivers that had not so great cars last year are saying their cars are better this year, which, while that may be true, maybe the Red Bull is just better than them being better. I don't know. Encouragingly, the Ferrari drivers and the Mercedes drivers both say that their cars are way easier to drive and feel faster than they were last year. So maybe we'll have at least a little bit of competition this year. We'll see.
Has the whole Christian Horner thing been sorted out yet?
No, they're still in the middle of that. I haven't really been keeping up with it because he just seems like the kind of person to do that kind of stuff anyway.
I don't even know what he's in trouble for. I haven't looked that far into it, to be honest.
I'm pretty sure it's harassment of an employee at Red Bull.
Oh. Okay.
Which, I mean, he just kind of looks like that, so.
I'm going to abstain from commenting on that.
Christian Horner ain't watching this.
Well, I don't care if he is or not. I'm still going to abstain from commenting.
Nah, well, I guess we'll see. I don't want to pass judgment too quick, but, we'll see.
Yeah. it'd be interesting to see what happens with Red Bull if there's a possibility he gets forced to resign if like does he have charges that can be brought against him? Is that what's happening?
Yeah. So basically, from my understanding, when the whole situation started, the legal team representing the other side of this said either you can resign or we'll press charges. And he decided not to resign. So then I think they're going to press charges, but there's like an internal investigation inside Red Bull, which seems kind of one sided if you've got the team investigating the team principal. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know.
They're probably hoping that they can come up with something internally that they can just bring back and say, hey, we checked this and we're sure that he's in the clear. You don't have to check anymore.
Yeah, right.
That's
pretty much it for F1 right now.
Okay.
More preseason testing this week. It's F1. All the driver moves were decided like last year, middle of the season, so there's not a whole bunch. I guess we'll go racing here in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I mean, hell, we already know where Lewis is going to be next season, and we haven't even turned a wheel for this season yet.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not like NASCAR and IndyCar silly season.
Mm-hmm.
But moving on to IndyCar, not much news right now. They announced a couple paint schemes this week. A couple of the Ray Hall cars. Stingray Rob has a new paint scheme that looks hideous. Pelot's new DHL paint scheme is announced too. It's nice to see DHL have a different paint scheme because they're not under Andretti anymore. They can actually do their own paint scheme. It's not very great, but it's different. And then after Dave Malukas broke his hand and needs surgery, Callum Ilott will fill in at McLaren for the preseason test at Homestead, Miami, which I'm disappointed they're testing at Miami and not racing at Miami.
Hey, like I said before we started, this may be opening the door for them to race at Homestead in the future.
Yeah, I know I was talking to you about this before we started recording, but I've been watching like the 2008 IndyCar season, and I think 2/3 of the series that year was oval races, and now we have Iowa, Milwaukee, Indy, Nashville, only because the Titans are building a new stadium, and we lost Texas this year. So yeah, I mean, we've fallen a long way, but still love IndyCar.
Now, did the decline of ovals, did that happen because of the Dan Weldon crash?
I don't think it was like that helped get rid of a lot of ovals between him and Stephen Wilson, because Stephen Wilson's the reason why we don't go to Pocono anymore. Between him and Robert Wickens in such a short time period, they said, nope, we're not doing it anymore.
Okay.
So that's automatically one of the big ovals off schedule. But yeah, I mean, it was just kind of one of those things when NASCAR started getting a little less popular in the 2010s. IndyCar just stopped going to these tracks too. I don't know if that's like a causation or not. Some of them, I forget what the company is, but the company owns a bunch of ovals for NASCAR. That IndyCar
SMI.
used to race it. Yeah, SMI. They own a ton of tracks in NASCAR that IndyCar used to go to, and now they won't let IndyCar go there anymore.
Well, Homestead is not an SMI track. That is a NASCAR-owned track.
Yeah, they used to race at Homestead every year. It was either the first race or the last race of the season, and now they haven't done it. And they haven't done that in a while. It's probably been since about 2011 since they've raced at Homestead. Because I don't think they raced there since they got the DW12 in 2012.
Yeah.
But
maybe they should change that.
I agree. I really like IndyCar oval races. I'm not a fan of the pack racing that they used to have. I think that was kind of a disaster waiting to happen, which it did. But yeah, I mean, more oval races, more diversity, the better. I think a lot of these guys don't really know how to race ovals anymore because the only one they need to is Indy, and they get a whole week of practice for it. So, yeah.
I will say, circling back to the Dan Weldon crash, I know we've talked a lot of shit about Marty Reed on here, and I have talked a lot of shit about him in the past. The one time I actually had respect for Marty Reed was the way he called the end of that broadcast after they had found out that Dan Weldon died. I still remember that to this day. If you haven't seen it, once we're done on here, I'm sure it's on YouTube. Go look it up. That was the most professional, with tact, well put together few minutes I've ever seen out of Marty Reed. He never topped that after that point, I don't think.
Yeah, it was definitely one of the darkest days of any car sport.
Yep. 3 races from Atlanta this weekend. We'll start with trucks. Trucks and Xfinity are both on Saturday doubleheader. 2 p.m. Eastern for trucks, the Freight 208. Tyler, who you got?
I'm a broken record this year. I'm going to Christian Eckes again this week.
Just this year? You're pretty much always a broken record.
Hey, this is only the second year we've done this. Come on.
You were a broken record last year too, though.
Yeah, well, maybe
it wasn't Eckes, it was Zane Smith.
The record was only together for like the first couple races of the season last year, and now it's just broken and stuck on the same guys. But I think Christian Eckes is pretty good at super speedways or drafting tracks. I'm sorry. He's won Atlanta since they've gone to this configuration.
He won this race last year.
Yeah, so
that was his first race with McAnally, or his first win with McAnally.
I don't know. I think he'll go 2 in a row for Atlanta. Last year, this year, I feel pretty good about it.
In fact, the Eckes truck that you can see in the background back there, that is the Atlanta win from last year.
Maybe if he wins this race, I might get diecast for this one. I don't know.
And that's the only race win they did for him last year, because he won like 4 races or something, but that was the only one they did for him last year.
DNP's not enough pre-orders.
Yep. Okay, so I am not going to be a broken record. I don't think I've picked him very much in the past, oddly enough, for truck races, but I'm going to go with Kyle Busch. First race in a Spire truck since Kyle Busch Motorsports is no more for the first time in a long time. He's going to be in the 7 truck this week for Spire. I think Kyle Busch goes out and wins his first race with Spire. Xfinity will follow the trucks on Saturday, 5 p.m. Eastern, the Raptor King of Tough 250. Tyler, who you got?
Oh, boy. I mean, broken record again here, I guess. I'm going to go with Austin Hill. He won Daytona last year and then followed it up with Atlanta at the next drafting track win that he got. I think back-to-back RCR cars are pretty much unstoppable on these types of tracks, and Jesse Love burned me last week, so I'm going to go with Austin Hill this week.
All right, fair enough. I'm going to go with a guy that ran decent in this race last year. I say decent. He finished 9th. He got better throughout the season and eventually won 4 races to end the season and make the championship 4. I think Sam Mayer kicks off the season in a better way than he did at Daytona. Got caught up in a wreck at Daytona, but I think he's going to go out and win his first race of 2024 at Atlanta. All right, on to Sunday, race number 2 for the Cup Series for 2024, 3 p.m. Eastern on Fox. Xfinity and trucks are both on FS1, by the way. I don't think I said that. 3 p.m. Eastern on Fox on Sunday, the Ambetter Health 400. Tyler, who you got?
I'm going to go with Ross Chastain this week. He showed in Daytona that he can race on these drafting track, restrictor plate tracks, whatever. He's really good. It's a matter of time until he wins one of these style of races, and I think he gets it done this week at Atlanta. As a bonus point, Daniel Suarez finished 2nd in this race last year at Atlanta. So Trackhouse has shown they can be good.
I forgot how good he was in this race last year. I do remember Suarez being extremely fast in this race last year. I forgot about that.
Yeah, Trackhouse has shown they can bring a good car for this race, and I think Chastain will get it done.
All right, fair enough. I'm going to go with someone who has shown he's been very good on super speedways or drafting tracks in the past few years. Didn't do well in this race last year. Ended up 5 laps down at the end of the race. I'm assuming had some sort of a problem, but I don't remember what it was now. 5 laps down in 27th last year. I think he improves on that mightily this year. And I think Bubba Wallace picks up his first win of 2024 and locks himself into the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, he's good at super speedways.
He is. I mean, his first win came at Talladega, and I know there's a lot of people that say that win doesn't count because it was rain shortened or whatever. He was in the front. It's not like he didn't have a good race. He put himself in position to be in the lead when the rain came out. So you can discredit that all you want, but he did win at Talladega in 22? 21. It was 2021.
Yeah, because it was still the old car.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, because it was 2021. He won at Talladega. 22, he won at Kansas in the fall, and then he didn't win last year. That's right. Okay. So that is going to be it for us this week, I think. Tyler, any final thoughts heading into Atlanta?
That's all I got.
Tyler Guthrie, man, a few words. That'll do it for us this week, though. We'll see you again next week. Might have some interviews in the first part of this week, like we did the Nick Sanchez interview. Just keep an eye out for that. If not, we'll see you again next week for this. Same time, same place. At that, I'm Garth. That's Tyler. And this is the Rookie Stripes podcast on Racing News Now.